Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to Favorite One Album Wonders. I've got 10 killer albums to run through with you guys. These are the one and done. They're over, no additional albums. And if they did record another album, it's locked in a vault somewhere and we've never gotten it because some of these bands, it's rumored that they might have made that second album, but so far to date, we haven't gotten it. So these are the one and done. And I'm always amazed at how many great albums there are that are out there where the band made one album and called it a day. And it's so unfortunate sometimes because of how great those are. We always want more. We don't get it. I've already filmed a video like this over on Pete Pardo's channel. I've done a couple of videos like this here, but this one, I've got 10 new ones that I haven't covered yet for you guys. So stick around. We're going to get into it here in just a bit. But before we start, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like. All those things do help support my channel. I greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, if you turn on notifications, you'll never miss an episode and stay up to date on really cool things like this with Favorite One Album Wonders. We're going to talk about 10 killer ones right now. And we're going to dive into it. I'm doing this alphabetical. It's not a ranking of any kind. They're all fantastic. So let's just dive into it and let's hopefully turn you guys onto something new or remind you about that little hidden gem you've got in your collection somewhere that you maybe haven't listened to for a long time. All right, so first up, a Braxus poll, self-titled 1997 album. This one here, debut one and only, right? Because they only made the one. But supergroup of musicians formed from former Santana band members around the Braxus album that came out in 1970. So, of course, we got Neil Schon on guitar. That was what drew me into this. I'm a huge Journey fan, more than I would say a Santana fan. But I know when this came out, it really piqued a lot of the interest of Santana fans. Greg Raleigh on here on keyboards. Of course, also would go on to Journey. Michael Shreve on drums, who would play with Hagar Shern, Aronson Shreve, Michael Caraballo on congas, and Jose Eras on timbas, and then Alfonso Johnson on bass. So quite the lineup of guys, and certainly if you are excited about Santana and that sort of stuff, I get it. For me, the thing that clicked on this was the sound of Neil's guitar, which is more in line with Journey, or the style that he plays with Journey. And so it piqued my interest there because I basically felt like I was listening to a Journey style sounding Neil Schon that had the Latin instrumentation and stuff like that that comes from Santana. So it's kind of a melding of the two things. And I credit this album here, at least, for opening my eyes up to Santana's music. I had never been a fan of his prior to this. And after this, I thought, let me get those couple albums that Neil Schon played on. And from there, I went and bought nearly the entire catalog. If you've been following my channel for a while, then you know that was a few years back, because it took me 25 years from the release of this in 97. So I bought this a couple of years ago. And since that time, I've become a Santana fan too. And that's what's always fun about this. I bought a one-off, one-hit wonder album, and yet I was still able to go out and dive down the rabbit hole of Santana. That doesn't happen often, but a lot of these one-off albums, at least the ones I'm going to talk to you guys about, have members from other famous groups. And if you end up liking that one thing, you can go listen to other stuff from them. Case in point, this next one here, which is Billiondollar Babies, Battle Axe from 1977. Let me actually pull out the album because this one here what I'm holding is actually a little box set of stuff, and I'll tell you about that in just a moment. There's the backside of the album, their one and done album. But what I was holding up was a little box set that has that, plus a live album, plus demos. So a little 3 CD package for you guys of this. But Billiondollar Babies was basically the Billiondollar Babies album group from Alice Cooper, if I can get that out right. So it's them minus Alice Cooper. It's the Alice Cooper band minus Alice Cooper himself. We have Michael Bruce on guitar, Dennis Dunaway on bass, and Neil Smith on drums, rounded out with Bob Dolan on vocals and Mike Marconi on guitar. And the songs and stuff that are on here were actually intended for the next Alice Cooper album. They began writing it at the point when the band went on hiatus following Muscle of Love, right? So Alice Cooper band puts this out. They go on hiatus. Alice Cooper goes to make a solo album, and some of the guys make their solo albums, and then they start preparing for the next album, which was this right here. And unfortunately, Alice Cooper never returned. So they decide to proceed without him and record this one here. And unfortunately, as the story goes, it came out and sunk without a trace, probably a little too late, a little too long, beyond Muscle of Love to really have gotten enough attention. Fans moved on pretty quick back in those days. And of course, it wasn't under the Alice Cooper name. You had Alice Cooper solo doing that. So people followed along with that. And I would say, though, had Alice Cooper fronted and recorded the songs that were on here, check out Too Young, I Miss You, and Rock and Roll Radio, I think this album would have been a killer Alice Cooper band album. Just never came to be, but I still enjoy this thing to this day. All right, next up, we've got AOR melodic rock band Billy Satellite from 1984. This one here, the band is an Oakland, California-based group that has two notable members in the lineup. We've got Danny Chauncey on guitar, who would go on to 38 Special, and Monty Byron on vocals, part of the country rock band Big House. And so the album itself is also notable for having the original version of I Wanna Go Back, which Eddie Money would later cover in 1986. These are the guys that wrote it and originally did it. So to me, that sort of tells you the quality of this. Why it wasn't a hit for them, but it was a hit for Eddie Money. Maybe it was the name that did it, but obviously the song itself is hit material. And they've got another one on here called Satisfy Me, which I think totally screams hit, equivalent to I Wanna Go Back. So that in and of itself, I think, speaks volume for this album. Musically comparable to 38 Special, Eddie Money, and Survivor. If you like all those bands, Billy Satellite, what an underrated gem that I think deserves more attention. Okay, next one here. Buster Brown, Something to Say, 1974. This one here, band formed in 73, same year as AC/DC. They too, an Australian band, that's part of the reference, but also because the claim to fame of having two members who would go on to do bigger and better things. And the first one having the biggest, greatest success out of that being Phil Rudd on drums, who was part of AC/DC from 75 to 1983, and again from 1994 to 2015, and then 2018 to present, although he's not out touring with them. He is not their touring drummer at the moment, at least. But the other person, and maybe the one we really should be talking about, is frontman Angry Anderson of Rose Tattoo. So he was here, Phil Rudd was here. This stuff very much in the vein of Rose Tattoo. If you like that and you like AC/DC, Buster Brown is one of those hidden gem albums that almost never gets spoken about that I think should, because again, it was the one and done, but a very, very good album. Okay, next one here, we got another one that is a AOR supergroup, Dead Ringer, Electrocution of the Heart. This one here featuring a killer lineup of people. Charlie Hunn on vocals, who sang with Ted Nugent, Joe Bouchard on guitar from Blue Oyster Cult, J. Jesse Johnson from the group Archangel on guitar, Dennis Dunaway on bass from Alice Cooper, and Neil Smith on drums, also Alice Cooper. So when you mix the sounds of Ted Nugent, Blue Oyster Cult, Alice Cooper, and if you know who Archangel is and you throw all of that mix into this thing, you've got 10 cool killer tracks of a group that unfortunately again, came out, did nothing, sunk without a trace, and I've always been just amazed at how these supergroups with these famous guys could record albums and nothing come of it. This one here reissued on Bad Reputation Records recently, so I don't know if first time on CD, but definitely back in print. Either way, lots of these albums, as you've seen, I've shown you some Rock Candy Records ones and other ones, most of these being reissues that have come out. Now we're going to move to one that, as far as I know, has never had a CD release, although I could be wrong about that. If it has had a CD release, I've never found one, and it's one of those ones that must be astronomical on eBay or Discogs or whatever. But Flint, self-titled 1978 album. It is rumored that these guys recorded a second album, but it's sitting somewhere locked in the vaults. I've never found even a demo of this thing. Originally came out on Columbia Records. It has 3 former members of Grand Funk Railroad, band from Flint, Michigan, so that's why the group is called Flint here. Don Brewer on drums and vocals, Mel Schechter on bass, and Craig Frost on keyboards, who also played with Bob Seger. So basically Grand Funk without Grand Funk. We got a couple other guys in the lineup, because when we flip it over, we see there are actually 5 guys here. So rounding out the lineup, we got Ron Trombley and Chuck Rowe playing with these guys as well. But, you know, as outstanding as Grand Funk is, I don't feel that Mark Farner's missing from this. As much as I like him with Grand Funk, I think this sounds fantastic. And the lineup and who's singing here, whether they're doing a cover song like Back in My Arms Again, or an original song on here like You Got It All Wrong, it's all really good stuff. Killer, start to finish. Highly recommend checking out Flint if you're a fan of Grand Funk Railroad. Okay, next we've got a pump rock band, Force 10, self-titled 1981 release. This one here is a reissue on Wounded Bird, as I've mentioned. A lot of these, getting reissues and are actually out and about for you guys to pick up. So this band, while only recording one under the name Force 10, had previously recorded an album, same band, same lineup, under the name Russia in 1980. Both of those being available from Wounded Bird. Russia, though, or when they were called Russia, they were a Seattle, Washington, US-based band. So I think that probably added to a bit of confusion with them. But also it was decided, at least at the time, that due to the Cold War that was going on in the 1980s, that Russia probably wasn't the best name for them to be getting called at that time. So they changed their name to Force 10. Neither of the albums, though, did anything, and it's very unfortunate. I really, really like this one. I've never had a chance yet to listen to the full album of Russia. I've streamed a few songs here or there on it. I'd love to dig one up, but it's one of those ones that's astronomically priced right now. But for this, at least, imagine Styx. And if James Young, the guitar player, sang all the songs, those ones that he's done with Styx, that have that harder edge, so it's a harder rock version of Styx. And I myself am a big fan of James Young and his vocals and the stuff he did early on. So this one here is absolutely amazing to me for that reason alone, and having that sound, and would recommend it to those of you that are fans of Styx. Okay, next one. Japanese hard rock group Heavy Metal Army, their self-titled 1981 album. And even though this is a one and done and the only album recorded under the name Heavy Metal Army, the band itself actually would record another studio album under the name Eastern Orbit, and they did a live album too, Eastern Orbit Live, Journey to Utopia. So 2 more albums under that name under the other name. So in all, the band has made 3 albums, but under the Heavy Metal Army album, it's the one and done. And I do think this is the best album of all of that sort of stuff. Despite heavy metal being in the name of the group, Heavy Metal Army, They're really much more of a 70s era hard rock sounding artist. It's the keyboards in here that really stand out, and it was sort of the feature of the group. They built the band around that guy. But the opening track on here, give it a listen. It's the title track, it's the name of the band, it is the song Heavy Metal Album. It's got a killer riff and some screaming keyboards that are all over this thing that just really send you into the stratosphere when listening to it if you dig that style of stuff, as I do. But I think the whole album is really good start to finish. So again, check that out. All right, I've got a glam metal band here for you guys, Melian. Lost in the Wild, 1989. This is a Wounded Bird Records reissue of their album. Ultimately, or previously, I should say, CBS Records released it, but now available readily from Rock Candy Records. And if you know Rock Candy Records, then you know they don't put out stuff that isn't high quality and good. The band itself was known for their frontman, Chris Cade. I don't know how much stuff he might have done in or around that time, but there was no more Melian albums, and he didn't come from any big famous bands or anything of that nature, so no real big offshoots or anything of that nature from this one. But if you like the vocals of Brad Sensill, who played with War Babies and this fantastic album from 1992, but he came from TKO. And if you know the TKO band, Seattle, Washington based band, and you like Brad Sensill, that's what you're getting here, just more of that. And I would basically say that if any of those people that love War Babies, who basically is a one and done, although recently, last year, maybe the year before, they released a Vault album of archival material, but this is their only studio album. So I think I've already talked about them, but if not, maybe I'll be talking about them in a future one. Sounds a lot like this. So I would just basically say if you are a War Babies fan, then you should check out Melian. All right. And the last one to talk about here, our 10th one for the day, Powerhouse, self-titled 1986 album. This one here, interesting kind of story behind it. If you know the band Geordie, and maybe I should hold this up first, Geordie, which featured Brian Johnson, who would go on to front AC/DC. When AC/DC hit and the name Geordie was being talked about so much, 1983, Geordie gets back together and releases this, obviously having a different frontman than Brian Johnson. This album here alone, absolutely fantastic. I would consider this a one and done because it's not the same as that earlier era stuff. But when this didn't take off for the group, minus the guitar player Vic Malcolm, they decided to continue on with Powerhouse. So the vocalist, the bassist, the drummer continue on. They got a new guitar player, Martin Metcalf, and formed Powerhouse. And for me, at least, I loved this album so much that I was absolutely blown away and elated to find out that there was something more by these guys, especially the vocalist, who I thought just did an absolute fantastic job. So Powerhouse, and look at that album cover. I mean, come on. It just screams 1980s. It's one of those ones that I love. I think it's such a pure, representation of the music and time and everything. But great album. So going from Geordie onto Powerhouse, another fantastic one. And as I said, 10 killer albums that I think you guys should be checking out. These are the one and done. Never did any more, at least haven't had anything more released since then. And what's kind of interesting is some of the ones that I did early on, going back a couple of years when I did my very first episode of One Album Wonders. And again, all different than the ones that I'm talking about here. So I am going to put a link in the description to that very first one, which was like a top 10 One Album Wonders. And then I did the favorite One Album Wonders video about 4 or 5 months back following the Pete Pardo show. I'll put a link to both of those in here. Now we're talking about 10 more. But from those earlier videos that I did, some of those groups have released things since then. I'm trying to actually remember who was in that first one, but I know artists like Bobby Keys, who I really enjoyed. I think it's his 1972 or 73 debut one and only solo album. He'd recorded an album in 1986, but it had never come out. I didn't even know it had been recorded. And last year it came out. And a few other artists like this. There was a group called Touch that for 40 years hadn't done anything and then got back together and recorded an album in 2021 and released a brand new album. So there are a lot of these groups, these one and done artists that have made returns or had second albums that were recorded at the time, then get released. The group Trigger is another one that I don't think I had ever covered. A glam rock group signed by Gene Simmons to the Casablanca Records label. Had a second album that only just got released a week or two ago called Second Round. It was shelved, it was recorded in 79, never released, and then finally saw the light of day 46 years on. So some of these artists, maybe with all of our talk and the reissues and people saying how great these things are, some of these record labels are deciding, let's get that stuff out there to the fans, and more power to them. I will take it. They don't have to stay one album wonders forever. I would gladly take more from these artists if it's available. But anyway, there you go. I hope you enjoyed it. And I've got a slew more of these things that I can make more episodes on and continue to cover, because obviously there are tons and tons of these one album wonder artists out there. So who out of this list did you not know about, or who out of this list did you love just as much as I do? Let me know in the comments, and maybe drop a line for one that you think is the all-time best one album wonder. All right, everyone. Take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.